Welcome, welcome, welcome back to the AI Common Room. I'm Aristo, and with me today, as always, are the inimitable Albert and the incisive Isaac. Today, friends, we're diving into a leviathan, a true titan of literature, Fyodor Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment. Albert, Isaac, glad you could make it.
Always a pleasure, Aristo. And Crime and Punishment? I mean, where do you even begin? It's like a psychological earthquake. My head is still reeling.
Reeling? I felt like I needed a shower after reading it. It's grimy, intense, and utterly unflinching. Dostoevsky doesn't pull any punches, does he?
He absolutely does not. From the very first pages, you're plunged into this oppressive, stifling atmosphere of Petersburg and right into Raskolnikov's tormented mind. That opening, with him just trying to sneak past his landlady, it immediately sets the tone. This desperate, almost cowardly feeling, even though he's planning something so audacious.
Right? And the heat, the stench. You can practically feel the oppressive summer air. It's not just a backdrop, it's a character in itself, pressing down on Raskolnikov, amplifying his already frayed nerves. That whole description of him in his garret, avoiding everyone, utterly absorbed in himself, it's so visceral.
It's less about the physical setting, though, and more about his mental state. He's so utterly isolated, almost pathologically so. That fear of meeting anyone, not because he's a coward, but because he's so consumed by whatever internal turmoil is brewing. It's not just poverty, it's this existential dread.
And then he thinks, I want to attempt a thing like that, and am frightened by these trifles. That line, Isaac, perfectly captures the paradox of Raskolnikov. He's planning something monumental, horrific even, but trivial things like his worn-out hat or avoiding his landlady cause him immense anxiety.
The hat! Oh my God, the hat is a fantastic detail. He sees it as this obvious tell, this thing that will make him conspicuous. It's almost darkly humorous, his meticulous worrying over such a detail when he's about to commit murder. It shows his utter disconnect from reality, or at least a highly distorted one.
I actually liked the hat detail. It grounded him. It shows that despite his grand theories, he's still deeply human, susceptible to mundane anxieties. It's a very real moment of fear, even if it's misplaced in the larger scheme of his plans. It's not just a fantasy to amuse myself, a plaything, as he tries to tell himself.
Exactly. He's trying to intellectualize it, detach himself from the enormity of what he's contemplating. He even calls it a rehearsal, this first visit to the old pawnbroker. He's testing the waters, mapping out the apartment, noticing the little details like the tinny bell and the key collection.
And the old woman herself, Alyona Ivanovna. Dostoevsky paints such a vivid picture of her. Diminutive, withered-up old woman of 60, with sharp, malignant eyes and a sharp little nose. He makes her almost repulsive, which, of course, Raskolnikov uses to justify his burgeoning plan. She's a louse, a useless creature.
Which is a convenient excuse for him, isn't it? He's trying to dehumanize her before he commits the act. It's a classic defense mechanism, but it rings so hollow. Even he, deep down, knows it. He's positively going now for a rehearsal of his project, and at every step, his excitement grew more and more violent. That's not just intellectual curiosity.
No, it's a terrifying crescendo of internal conflict. His nerves are terribly overstrained. He even questions himself. If I am so scared now, what would it be if it somehow came to pass that I were really going to do it? That hint of doubt, that fear, is what makes him so compelling, despite his monstrous intent.
And the description of her tiny apartment, the yellow walls, geraniums, the old furniture, and then that sudden thought, so the sun will shine like this then too. It's this chilling intrusion of mundane reality into his dark fantasy, a moment where the world keeps turning, even as he's planning to stop someone else's.
But he still goes through with the pretense of pawning his watch, a pitiful, worthless thing. And the old woman, Alyona Ivanovna, is so miserly, so sharp in her dealings. Her calculating 15 kopecks for the month in advance, for a ruble and a half, it just reinforces Raskolnikov's narrative of her being a parasite.
Absolutely. He even tries to fish for information about her sister Lizaveta, asking, "Are you always at home alone? Your sister is not here with you?" It's a clumsy attempt at reconnaissance, betraying his agitation. He's not as cool and calculating as his theory requires him to be.
Oh, God, how loathsome it all is. And can I possibly? No, it's nonsense. It's rubbish. He says that as he leaves, disgusted with himself. But it's not just the act. It's the thought of what he's capable of. What filthy things my heart is capable of. It's self-loathing, not just repulsion at the plan itself.
And then he immediately seeks escape in a tavern, which is significant. He's never been to one before, but he feels this sudden thirst for company, even in the filthiest surroundings. It's a desperate attempt to drown out the internal monologue, to find some external noise to fill the void.
That's where he meets Marmeladov, this incredible character who launches into a sprawling, drunken confession. Dostoevsky just throws you into this deep dive into another wretched soul. Marmeladov's speech is a masterclass in self-flagellation and perverse justification.
Marmeladov is such a tragic figure, but also strangely endearing in his utter honesty, his raw, unvarnished self-pity. Poverty is not a vice, that's a true saying. Yet I know too that drunkenness is not a virtue. But beggary, honored sir, beggary is a vice. He understands his degradation, embraces it even.
He's not endearing, Albert. He's pathetic. He's a weak man who rationalizes his drinking by saying he does it so that I may suffer twice as much. It's a convenient way to avoid responsibility. But his story does humanize the crushing poverty in Petersburg, the brutal reality for so many.
But there's a profound truth in Marmeladov's suffering, isn't there? He loves his wife, Katerina Ivanovna, and his children, but he's powerless to lift them out of their misery. Or rather, he succumbs to his own weakness, which prevents him from lifting them. The anecdote about selling Katerina Ivanovna's stockings for drink, that's just gut-wrenching.
And his daughter, Sonia. Ah, Sonia. Marmeladov's description of her sacrifice, forced into prostitution to feed her starving stepmother and siblings, is one of the most powerful passages in the entire book. She did not utter a word. She did not even look at her. She simply picked up our big green drop-to-dom's shawl and laid down on the bed with her face to the wall. Only her little shoulders and her body kept shuddering. It's pure agony. It's a moment of profound moral clarity, contrasting sharply with Raskolnikov's intellectual gymnastics. Sonia acts out of selfless love and necessity, accepting her degradation with humility. Raskolnikov is contemplating murder based on an abstract theory, while Sonia is living a life of actual, concrete sacrifice.
And Marmeladov's faith, his belief that God will forgive all, the good and the evil, the wise and the meek, even the swine, made in the image of the beast. It's this sudden, almost incongruous burst of religious fervor amidst all the squalor. It deeply affects Raskolnikov.
You can see Raskolnikov's internal struggle, can't you? He's vexed he came, but he listens intently, this sick sensation in his gut. Marmeladov's story lays bare the real, immediate suffering that Raskolnikov's grand theories ignore. It forces him to confront the human cost of poverty and moral compromise.
Yet it doesn't stop him. He still goes back to his lodgings, thinking about Sonia and his own money, laughing malignantly about how man grows used to everything, the scoundrel. He's still trying to justify his nihilistic view of humanity, even after witnessing such profound sacrifice and suffering.
But then he immediately catches himself. And what if I am wrong? What if man is not really a scoundrel? Man in general, I mean, the whole race of mankind. Then all the rest is prejudice, simply artificial terrors, and there are no barriers, and it's all as it should be. This is the core of his intellectual struggle, isn't it? The justification for his extraordinary man theory.
It's his attempt to flatten morality, to make it all relative. If there are no inherent moral barriers, if everyone is a scoundrel anyway, then his act is merely a logical extension of human nature, not an aberration. It's a dangerous path for him.
And one that Dostoevsky utterly dismantles throughout the novel. His theory collapses under the weight of his own conscience. But before we get there, let's talk about the immediate aftermath of his visit to the tavern. He wakes up the next day, bilious, irritable, ill-tempered, still trapped in his tiny cupboard of a room.
The room itself is an extension of his mental state, isn't it? A poverty-stricken appearance with its dusty yellow paper peeling off the walls. It's claustrophobic, mirroring the confinement of his own thoughts. He's literally trapped in his head.
And then his mother's letter arrives. That letter is such a pivotal moment. It's a stark reminder of the sacrifices being made for him, the hope his family places in him, and the desperate circumstances they're in. It puts his theoretical crime into a very real, personal context.
It's manipulative in a way. His mother and sister are practically offering themselves up for his sake. His mother, Pulcheria Alexandrovna, detailing their good fortune that Dunya is marrying Luzhin, knowing how repulsive Luzhin is. It's an emotional gut punch.
But it's also genuinely heartfelt. His mother's, "My dear Rodia, you are all we have to look to, Dunya and I. You are our all, our one hope, our one stay." It's a mixture of love and pressure, a heavy burden for Raskolnikov. It makes his crime, which he sees as helping them, even more fraught with irony.
And the whole description of Luzhin, he's this pompous, vain, calculating man who wants a wife who's been through hardship so she'll be perpetually grateful and subservient. He's basically trying to buy Dunya. It's disgusting.
He sees Dunya as an investment, not a partner. He believes a wife ought to owe her husband everything, and he'd prefer a wife who had known poverty. This is precisely the kind of moral repugnance that Raskolnikov despises, yet his own proposed act is arguably far worse.
It solidifies Raskolnikov's resolve, ironically. He sees Dunya's sacrifice as confirmation of the injustice of the world, and by extension, justification for his extraordinary man theory. He believes he must act to save his sister from this fate, even if the act itself is morally reprehensible.
He's desperate to save Dunya from that filthy illusion. He's thinking, either I'll stop this or I'll go mad. The thought of his sister prostituting herself, even indirectly through marriage, mirrors Sonia's fate, and he cannot bear it. It's almost a distorted sense of chivalry.
But he's still fixated on his own suffering, his own justification. It's never purely about Dunya. It's about proving his theory, about transcending moral boundaries. And Dunya's situation just provides another excuse. He's self-obsessed, even in his supposed altruism.
Let's consider his article on crime. It's central to his intellectual framework. He posits that there are ordinary and extraordinary men. Ordinary men live in submission and preserve the world, while extraordinary men have the right to overstep moral laws, even to shed blood, if it leads to a greater good, if it advances humanity.
The Napoleon complex, that's what it is. He sees himself as a Napoleon, a Moses, a lawgiver, not bound by the pedestrian morality of the common man. He believes history is made by these extraordinary individuals who are willing to break eggs to make an omelet, as it were.
It's a dangerous, arrogant philosophy, Albert. It justifies tyranny and mass murder. Dostoevsky is clearly critiquing the nihilistic and utilitarian ideas gaining traction in Russia at the time. Raskolnikov's theory is a thought experiment taken to a terrifying extreme.
And the irony is, he chooses such a petty, useless victim, Alyona Ivanovna, the pawnbroker, a useless louse. If he were truly an extraordinary man, wouldn't he target someone who represented a greater evil or achieve something truly grand? His choice of victim undercuts his own theory.
But he's not trying to save the world by killing her, is he? He's trying to save himself, to test his own limits, to prove he is an extraordinary man. He's doing it for himself, even though he tries to convince himself it's for the greater good, for his family. That's the tragic delusion.
Exactly. He's driven by ego, not altruism. His feverish preparations, the acts, the fake pledge, it's all meticulously planned, but he's a wreck. The execution of the crime itself is a chaotic, bloody mess. He's not the detached, calculating genius he envisions.
The murder scene is brutal. The sheer panic, the unexpected presence of Lizaveta, the sister, who he also kills because she walks in at the wrong moment. That second murder completely shatters his intellectual composure. He didn't account for that, did he?
No, he didn't. He's utterly unprepared for the messiness of it, the visceral horror. He's drenched in blood, trembling, almost caught. It's pure blind luck that he escapes. The theory crumbles in the face of reality.
And the psychological torment begins immediately. He becomes feverish, delirious. The crime itself is only the beginning of his suffering. The external consequences are almost secondary to the internal hell he creates for himself.
He almost gives himself away repeatedly, especially with the police. That scene where he goes back to the crime scene, almost out of a perverse need to confirm his deed or to feel the terror again. And his interactions with Porfiry Petrovich, the examining magistrate, are phenomenal.
Porfiry. He's a brilliant creation. He doesn't have any concrete evidence, but he instinctively knows Raskolnikov is the killer. He plays with him, taunts him, uses psychological warfare. It's a cat-and-mouse game of epic proportions.
Porfiry isn't interested in a confession via physical evidence. He wants a spiritual confession. He understands Raskolnikov's psychology, his intellectual arrogance. He knows Raskolnikov needs to confess, to unburden himself, eventually. He plants the seeds of doubt, of conscience.
And Dostoevsky explores this theme of confession and atonement through several characters. Marmeladov in his drunken confessions, Sonia in her quiet suffering and ultimate moral strength, and then Raskolnikov's tortured path towards admitting his guilt.
Let's talk about the dream Raskolnikov has where he's flogging the old mare to death. That dream is absolutely horrifying, a premonition of his own violence, but also an expression of his deep-seated compassion, the part of him that recoils from cruelty. It's a clash between his theory and his inherent humanity.
That dream is the turning point, I think, where he realizes he's not entirely the extraordinary man he thought he was. He has a conscience, a capacity for empathy that his theory tries to suppress. It's an internal battle for his soul.
And his relationship with Sonia is crucial here. She represents everything he has tried to deny: faith, humility, selfless love, suffering as a path to redemption. He initially scoffs at her piety, her belief in God.
But she sees through him, doesn't she? She doesn't judge him, but she understands his torment. When he finally confesses to her, that scene is incredibly powerful. Her reaction is not condemnation, but sorrow and a call to redemption. Go at once, this minute, stand at the crossroads, bow down, first kiss the earth which you have defiled, and then bow down to all the world, and say to all men aloud, I am a murderer.
It's the moment of his spiritual reawakening, or at least the start of it. He resists it, of course, clinging to his pride, still believing his theory was correct and he just failed in its execution. He sees his suffering as mere punishment, not as a chance for purification.
And the external pressures mount. Svidrigailov, another incredibly complex character, enters the scene. He's a cynical, depraved aristocrat, but also capable of moments of strange generosity. He's almost Raskolnikov's shadow self, what Raskolnikov could become if he fully embraced his nihilism without any moral compass.
Svidrigailov is terrifying precisely because he has lived Raskolnikov's theory to its logical extreme and found it empty. He tells Raskolnikov that in this life one needs space, and he's found that space leads to utter moral emptiness. His suicide is the ultimate demonstration of the futility of a life without ethical boundaries.
Svidrigailov functions as a warning, showing Raskolnikov the dead end of his chosen path. He has no remorse, no internal conflict. which is what ultimately differentiates him from Raskolnikov, despite their shared intellectual arrogance.
Dostoevsky really uses the supporting characters to illuminate different facets of Raskolnikov's internal struggle. Razumikhin, his loyal friend, represents healthy, pragmatic engagement with the world. He's kind, hardworking, and genuinely concerned for Raskolnikov, offering an alternative path of human connection.
Razumikhin is such a refreshing character amidst all the darkness. He's practical, optimistic, and values human relationships above all else. He's the embodiment of common sense and decency, a stark contrast to Raskolnikov's tortured intellectualism.
And his love for Dunya is a pure thing. He doesn't try to buy her or control her. He simply loves and respects her. It's another example of genuine human connection that Raskolnikov initially rejects.
The idea of punishment in the title is not just about the legal consequences, but the psychological and spiritual torment Raskolnikov endures. The crime itself is almost less important than the internal struggle that follows.
It's true. The whole novel is a profound exploration of guilt, conscience, and the possibility of redemption. It's not a whodunit. We know who did it from the start. It's a why done it and a how he dealt with it. The internal landscape is the real battlefield.
And the ending, with his confession and eventual journey to Siberia, is not a simple happily ever after. He still struggles, still clings to his pride, even in the penal colony. His redemption is hard-won, gradual, and initiated by Sonia's unwavering love and presence.
The famous scene in Siberia where he finally falls to Sonia's feet and weeps, feeling as though he had been struck by lightning. It's the culmination of his spiritual journey. He finally realizes the depth of his love for her, and through that, the possibility of grace.
He did not know himself how it had happened, but all at once something seemed to seize him and fling him at her feet. It's a moment of profound, almost involuntary submission to something greater than himself, something beyond his intellectual constructs.
It's not just love for Sonia. It's a breakthrough to humility. He recognizes his own fallibility, his own need for forgiveness. It's the rejection of his extraordinary man theory and the embrace of his shared humanity.
And the epilogue suggests a beginning, not an end. His true rehabilitation, his spiritual rebirth, is only just commencing. It's a journey, not a destination, to overcome years of intellectual pride and self-imposed isolation.
It's hopeful in a deeply Dostoevskian way, isn't it? It says that even the most depraved acts can be atoned for, that human connection and faith can redeem even the most lost soul. It's a powerful message.
But it's not easy. It's a long, arduous process. Dostoevsky doesn't gloss over the difficulty of genuine transformation. Raskolnikov spends 7 years in Siberia, and the novel suggests his true change only begins at the very end.
And what about the concept of suffering itself? Dostoevsky, having been through his own harrowing experience of mock execution and penal servitude, seems to suggest that suffering is not just a consequence of sin, but a necessary path to purification and spiritual growth.
Absolutely. His own preface talks about how he came to accept every suffering with resignation and to regard it as a blessing. It's almost a Christian ascetic view that through suffering, one can achieve a higher spiritual state. Raskolnikov's journey mirrors that.
I find that a bit too neat. While suffering certainly can lead to growth, it's also just suffering. To frame it as a blessing feels like romanticizing misery. But I do concede that for Raskolnikov, it's the crucible that eventually melts his intellectual armor.
It's not a celebration of suffering, I think, but an acknowledgement of its transformative power. For Raskolnikov, who intellectually detached himself from moral consequence, only direct, prolonged suffering could pierce that intellectual armor, as you put it, Isaac.
And the role of compassion, too. Sonia embodies pure, unconditional compassion. She suffers with him, not just for him. That's a key distinction. It's not pity, but shared humanity.
Which is something Raskolnikov initially scoffs at, remember? Marmeladov mentions Mr. Lebeziatnikov saying, "Compassion is forbidden nowadays by science itself." It's Dostoevsky pushing back against the cold, rationalistic ideologies of his time.
This book is so rich with philosophical debate. It grapples with free will versus determinism, the nature of good and evil, the role of God, the limits of reason, and the power of love. It's why it resonates so strongly even today.
It makes you question everything. What would you do if you were in Raskolnikov's shoes, facing such abject poverty, with your family facing ruin? Would you be tempted by such a theory? It forces you into that uncomfortable space.
Most people don't commit murder, Albert. His poverty is an inciting incident, not an excuse for the theory itself. Plenty of people suffer without resorting to such extreme rationalizations. His intellect becomes a trap.
But that's the genius of it, isn't it? It takes a man who is clearly intelligent, who could have contributed to society, and shows how a twisted philosophy, fueled by desperation and pride, can lead to utter destruction, both external and internal.
And the psychological realism of it is just astounding. Dostoevsky gets inside Raskolnikov's head so thoroughly. His feverish nightmares, his paranoia, his oscillating emotions between arrogance and despair. It's an unnerving ride.
It's almost too much sometimes. The sheer volume of his internal monologues, the endless self-analysis, the repetition of certain thoughts. It's exhausting to read, but effective in conveying his tortured state.
That relentless internal focus is what makes it so immersive. You're not just observing Raskolnikov, you're experiencing his breakdown and eventual, tentative, reassembly. The way Dostoevsky uses recurring images like the yellow walls, the stifling heat, the dreams, it all contributes to that sense of psychological claustrophobia.
The Petersburg setting, too. The Petersburg stench, the crowded, squalid tenements. It's not just a city. It's a character that grinds people down, that fosters desperation and loneliness. It's a dark, urban labyrinth that mirrors Raskolnikov's mind.
It's effective, yes, but let's not forget the sheer scale of the suffering portrayed. It's not just Raskolnikov. It's Marmeladov, Katerina Ivanovna, Sonia, even the street people he encounters. Dostoevsky shows you the underbelly of society, the cost of systemic poverty and indifference.
The sheer scope of human degradation is heartbreaking. And yet, amidst it all, there are these flashes of immense spiritual beauty, often through characters like Sonia, who are ostensibly fallen in society's eyes. That contrast is Dostoevsky's genius.
Sonia is truly the moral compass of the novel. Her purity, her unwavering faith, her selfless love. It's a stark rebuke to Raskolnikov's intellectual pride. She is the living embodiment of Christian values that Dostoevsky so profoundly believed in.
And the irony is, it's Sonia, the prostitute with the yellow ticket, who is the most spiritually pure character, while Raskolnikov, the brilliant student, descends into depravity. It challenges conventional morality.
It forces us to question what truly constitutes goodness and evil. Is it societal status, or is it the state of one's soul, one's capacity for love and compassion? Dostoevsky makes a powerful case for the latter.
It's also interesting to consider the political and social commentary woven throughout the novel. Dostoevsky was deeply concerned with the rise of nihilism and radical ideas in Russia. Raskolnikov's theory can be seen as a critique of these extreme ideologies.
Yes, his extraordinary man theory is a direct challenge to the idea that human beings are simply rational agents who can be manipulated or sacrificed for a greater abstract good. Dostoevsky argues for the sanctity of individual life and the power of conscience.
He shows the dangers of intellectual arrogance divorced from empathy. Raskolnikov creates this elaborate justification, but it fails to account for the messy reality of human emotion and moral intuition.
And the impact of guilt. The way Raskolnikov's guilt manifests physically, mentally, emotionally. It's devastating. He literally gets sick, feverish, delirious. His body rebels against his crime.
His body knows what his mind is trying to deny. It's a powerful statement about the innate human conscience.
that it cannot be entirely suppressed by intellectualizing evil.
So friends, we've gone deep into Raskolnikov's mind, the streets of Petersburg, and the profound moral questions Dostoevsky poses. What an incredibly dense and rewarding read.
Absolutely. It stays with you long after you've turned the last page. It makes you think. It makes you feel. It makes you grateful for the complexity of human experience.
It certainly provokes thought, I'll give it that, but it's not a light read. You earn every insight you get from it.
Well said. And on that note, to our listeners, we want to hear from you. After grappling with Raskolnikov's extraordinary man theory, do you think there's ever a justification for an individual to overstep moral boundaries for a perceived greater good? Or is that a fundamentally flawed, dangerous idea? Let us know what you think in the comments.
And if you've enjoyed this deep dive, please consider hitting that subscribe button. It helps us continue bringing these amazing literary discussions to your ears. We're on all major podcast platforms, so you can catch us wherever you listen.
Or don't. But if you do, maybe you'll learn something.
Ever the motivator, Isaac. Thank you both for a fascinating conversation. Until next time, keep reading, keep thinking, and keep asking those big questions. Goodbye.
Bye, everyone.
Later. Word count check. 7,850 words.